Okay, so a couple days ago, I put a poll on Twitter asking which movie you'd like me to make a video about next. The choices were Lilo and Stitch, The Artist, The Road to El Dorado, and Beetlejuice. And for a good while there, it was actually tied between this movie and Beetlejuice. But in the end, this movie pulled through. So let's talk about a childhood favorite of mine. The Road to El Dorado. So The Road to El Dorado is an old school hand-drawn DreamWorks animated movie. It came out in March of the year 2000, so I was like 4 years old, almost 5. And like I said, it's a childhood favorite of mine. Because I'm actually not a huge DreamWorks fan. I mean, I like the first 2 Shrek movies and this. And that's pretty much it. Oh, and the first 2 How to Train Your Dragons, I guess. But The Road to El Dorado is hands down my favorite DreamWorks movie. It takes place back in the 1500s in Spain, and it revolves around 2 con artists, Miguel and Tulio. They stumble across a map to the fabled lost city of El Dorado, the city of gold, and through a series of events, they actually find it. But upon entering the city, they are mistaken for gods. Like, the locals believe that they are the gods that have finally been sent to them. So now they are faced with the con of their lives. They have to pull it off and get out there with as much gold as they can. And now we have our movie, which still cracks me up to this day. I mean it, dude. We all know humor is an objective thing. What's funny to one person might not be funny to someone else. To me, the star of this movie is the comedic timing between Miguel and Tulio. Just the chemistry between these 2 characters is like unmatched. Miguel is the dreamer, you know? He dreams of bigger and better things. He dreams of adventure. He wants to have fun in life. Whereas Tulio is the rock, you know? He's like, let's get this job done. It's about the money. You know, he's all about that. So the banter between the 2 of them, for lack of a better word, is gold. Like, one of the first scenes in the movie is the scene that sets up the fact that they're con artists. They get busted for gambling with loaded dice, so to get out of it, they set up this whole fight between themselves. And just the dialogue, Tulio's all like, he gave me loaded dice! And they stage this whole sword fight, and they do end up escaping. Well, they escape that situation anyway. But it's that kind of banter and animated chemistry that keeps this movie going. To me anyway, it's just so entertaining. Plus, it's the fact that Tulio's voiced by Kevin Kline and Miguel is voiced by Kenneth Branagh. Their voice talents are pretty good. Now, when Miguel and Tulio get to El Dorado, they meet Chell. Chell, to this day, is one of the hottest animated chicks I have ever seen. And she's voiced by Rosie Perez, so it makes sense. Chell is a native of El Dorado, but she wants out. She also dreams of adventure. She's in on the scam that Miguel and Tulio are trying to pull off. And this is where we get to the meat of the story. Because again, it's about Miguel being the dreamer and Tulio being the rock. They're in El Dorado. Miguel's like, look at this place. It's beautiful. I love it here. The people are nice. And I wouldn't mind staying here a little longer than we originally planned. But Tulio's like, dude, we got a job to do. Get as much gold as we can and get the hell out of here. Otherwise, we're gonna get made. So there is that moral dilemma between these 2 best friends. And it's pulled off very well, if you ask me. Now, we also have the High Priest. The High Priest, Zekel Khan, is pretty much the villain of this movie, because it turns out he is nuts. He's pretty much the shaman, you know, the spiritual leader of El Dorado to an extent. He believes that he speaks for the gods. And here's where we get into the whole cultural aspect of this movie. Like, in a lot of lore, I'm talking in our real world, a lot of cultures believe that the gods are, like, evil, and that they see humans as imperfect. So in this movie, that's how Zekel Khan views people. He believes that the gods were sent to El Dorado to cleanse the city, which makes him come off as just out of his mind. And that's also done pretty well. Now, one of my favorite things about this movie is the design, the art style of El Dorado itself. You look around at all these Aztec designs and you're like, wow, you know, the filmmakers must have done their research. The creatures you see roaming around, their designs are all exaggerated. It's just gorgeous to look at. And with that also comes the music. The music in this movie is amazing. There are songs in this movie. It's not a musical. Well, the characters do sing one song. It's tough to be a god. Tread where mortals have not tried. That's a pretty good song. But the rest of the songs in this movie are sung by Elton John, and they're all great. I sing along with all of them whenever I watch this movie. But the score is also really good, because it was composed by none other than Hans Zimmer. So yeah, you got Hans Zimmer doing the score, and you got Elton John doing the songs. Same team that brought you the amazing soundtrack of The Lion King. They also did The Road to El Dorado. But the funny thing is that Hans Zimmer's score in this movie, when you hear the main theme, that dun 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 dun, you hear that and you think to yourself, oh yeah, you know, I can see how Hans Zimmer would eventually come up with the main theme for Pirates of the Caribbean. Because there are scenes in this movie where the music straight up sounds like something out of Pirates of the Caribbean. The Pirates of the Caribbean movies, that is. So hilarious comedic banter between the 2 main characters, Miguel and Tulio. Beautiful design and artwork. Super catchy music. To me, The Road to El Dorado is, there's no other way to say it, pure gold. The unfortunate thing is that when this movie came out, it met mixed to average reviews, and it was really a box office bomb. Believe it or not, it was supposed to have a couple of sequels. They were gonna be The Road to Somewhere Else. Miguel and Tulio and Chell were supposed supposed to go off on other adventures. But because this movie didn't do that well, those sequels just never happened. And yeah, to me, that's kind of a bummer. I say kind of because I do appreciate this movie as its own standalone thing. But, I can't help but wonder what those sequels would have been like. Where would they have gone next? I guess we'll never know. Again, great dialogue, great artwork, great music. The humor is the star of this movie. And actually, I watched this movie again just last night, and I noticed that a lot of the humor, or a good chunk of it anyway, is adult-oriented. There were some jokes that went over my head as a kid. Like, there's a scene where Miguel and Tulio are talking. They're trying to work Chell into their whole con plan in El Dorado. Tulio looks at Miguel. He's like, all right, let's pretend you have that little voice in your head that tells you to quit while you're ahead. What would it be saying about Chell? Miguel simply responds, "Grrr." That scene cracks me up now, but I didn't get that when I was 4. It's hilarious. This movie is always gonna crack me up. This is one of those movies where if you haven't seen it by now, if you watch it for the first time now, you're probably not gonna like it that much. It's only really great if you grew up with it like I did. It's a nostalgically great movie. But hey, we all got nostalgically great movies. 4-year-old kids that just saw Sonic the Hedgehog in theaters, 20 years from now, they'll look back on Sonic the Hedgehog and be like, yeah, it's not that great, but to me it is because I grew up with it. That's what nostalgic movies are for. And that is what The Road to El Dorado is to me. So The Road to El Dorado, have you seen it? Did you grow up with it? What do you think about it? Whatever you think, go ahead and leave a comment. And don't forget to subscribe.